Well, it's a wonderful day for Betsy, for me, for our thanks to Richard. Such generosity is extraordinary. I also am blessed by many of my former students here who live in the Chicago area, and by two of my partners who have come from Princeton, a long trek, Karen Nichols and Patrick Burke. And I thank them dearly because it is a group that we have in Princeton that produces our work. It's certainly I draw, but they draw. And they are exquisite makers of plans. It is a lost art. And I gave another talk at Miami last year on making the plan. And I had read something in a common journal, Time or Newsweek or someplace, where the critic was talking about planning in the Beaux-Arts period. It was when the Beaux-Arts show was on at the Museum of Modern Art years and years ago. And trying to explain what a Beaux-Arts plan was, or what a plan was. And I think the critic was Robert Hughes, who's extraordinarily gifted, as you know, and has just written a book on Rome. But Hughes did, as I remember, and I can't find it, he made a description of making a plan so that you sensed, as Andres just talked about, rising up to the reading room in Asplund's Stockholm Library. And I might say, you go through an Egyptian door, as if that's the beginning of civilization. You go past a Greek rail, and finally get to a Roman room. And that sequence is, of course, something for the cognoscenti, but it does make you smile. But in Hughes's description of the plan, he would say things such as the plan develops, the primary axis of our walking is developed by temptations to the left and right, as we are given options of moving off the primary axis to secondary ones. And that once we take one of those secondary or tertiary axes, we are given the kind of room that is appropriate to that secondary axis. And I just as I'm telling you this story, I remember one of my first teaching days when a student was doing a modern building. And he said, you know, I've used the open plan, or in some cases, the free plan. Le Corbusier was the free plan, and Mies van der Rohe was the open plan. And he said, my problem is that the master bedroom is right next to the living room, and if the kids stay up late at night and are watching television or listening to the radio, this is a long time ago, and the parents are trying to sleep, I had no way to give them acoustical closure. And he said, the space just couldn't handle it, nor could my plan. And I said, did you ever try making a room? You have to know that those were blasphemous words. You could not make a room. You had to make space, especially if you were from Harvard. Speaking of Harvard, I said last night that there were two schools of architecture in America, but I'd like to expand that a little bit. I said Miami and Notre Dame, of course, or as we've just learned from the Prince, Notre Dame. Of course it's Notre Dame. But with Bob Stern here and Jay Chatterjee, certainly will include Cincinnati and Yale. and they wouldn't be left out in any case as very good options. But I wanted to talk today just for a minute to the students that are here. So all you octogenarians, close your ears. I don't know what you'll get from this, but somebody was talking to me the other day and they said, Michael, you notice everything. You notice absolutely everything. You're a kind of visual savant. And I said, that's one of the nicest things that's ever been said. My mother once was shopping and I was tagging along, was very young. And she said something to the saleswoman that I didn't approve of. I thought she kind of mishandled the situation. And I scolded her for it later. And she said, "You're so sensitive." And I said, "Thank you." You have to be a visual savant. You have to be sensitive if you students are going to do your craft. And you have to do it through drawing. Andres said, I didn't close the book on anything. I do want to open the book on drawing. I don't care if you don't draw well. In fact, I tend to mistrust you if you draw really well. Because it would probably mean there are too many baby carriages and balloons and too many cups of cappuccino on the coffee table in the Piazza Navona or something like that. Draw analytically. That's not to say draw coldly. Piranesi drew the most marvelous analytical drawings. He would make drawings that would teach architects what the opus reticulatum was, if they didn't know, why the Romans built that way. He revealed the wall, of course, simply by drawing the ruins. But in drawing the ruins, he would draw the layers of construction. Just look at Piranesi next time. They're not just all pretty pictures, which he did make as well to sell. But he made those other drawings, analytical drawings, to remember himself. They were for him. First, draw for yourself. Don't draw for your mother-in-law. Draw for yourself. And draw in a way that 10, 20 years from now, you can pick it up in your sketchbook, look at it, and you're the only one that sees it. Nobody else has to look. It's your diary. It's your visual diary. And see what you were thinking about. When you have drawn this room, to distinguish in a more or less bilateral symmetry, as this room is, what makes the kind of hall of the cardinals behind me in those seats, and what makes the balcony up here, then distort the room just slightly, so this symmetrical room becomes one of bias toward this point here. And remember those lessons, because if you draw a section of this room, you won't forget it. Never mind the decoration of this room and all of that goes with it. And they are adjectives. The decoration and the plan, of course, is a monumental adjective to determining the shape of this room. And then someday you'd simply do it by rote and say, wait, I didn't think that through. Did I do it right? Is there a right? No, there's not a right. There are many, many options. Everything that you do is questionable because there isn't a one way to do it. There are many ways of doing it. But the many ways are then conditioned by what else you do. What Bob Hughes wrote about making the plan was to always recognize if there's this, there's probably that. If there's this, there's that. And where you come from and what the section is doing as you move through that world is what and I'm sorry, we won't take it out of the room, it's just in here. What I missed at the Art Institute what I got in that big space that where you were led off to the galleries was a kind of low hum. It didn't go, it didn't, well, that's just too corny for words. I won't say that. It didn't make a tune. It didn't, there wasn't the moment where light came in a specific place. Everything was general. And what I said before about it, and I wasn't very clear, I said something about Dulwich and the clear story light at Dulwich. And what I realized by saying that, it triggered for me what a more articulate thing would be to say about Renzo's edition, which is he made a window. Well, thank goodness he made a window to the park. But he made a glass facade. The whole thing is a window. That's like saying the whole thing is a wall. There are good walls and there are bad walls, but most good walls have windows within them. And there are specific places relative to your body. Draw it. Draw your body next to the window. If it's in Renzo's building, it starts at your feet and ends at the slab above you. It starts at the wall and ends at the wall. Something's wrong here. You've got to have the critical ability to look at something like that, look at the work, look at Matisse when you're there, one of the great Matisses, and then come back out into this monotone. It isn't right. It somehow should have been joyous. And he thought that by making all that light, it would be joyous. And I'm sure some people love it. Some people really, really must love it because it makes no mistakes. And it's one way of doing it. And it isn't wrong. It just could be righter. Now, I want to end because I don't want to talk too long, and because I could do this all day. You don't know. I could just go on. But before you all got here, they wanted me here about 3 hours early to get the microphone on, which I did in 4 minutes, and showed me that they were going to hand me this trophy. And you can see it over there, and it weighs 20 pounds. And it is so beautiful. I heard the sculptor of this monument is in the audience. Is he here? He's not here. Anyway, somebody, I think it was Andreas, who said to me, you could have him do bronze casts of your buildings for the same cost as doing it in cardboard. He's supposedly still learning, but my goodness, it's so well done. I'll cherish this and am so happy with it that if they ever give it to me. It is just to get a work of art after 3 days as we've had here is something very special. I adore this place. I adore Chicago and Michigan Avenue and the walks that I've taken with Minnie, and we've enjoyed looking at the buildings and seeing what works and what doesn't work and why it does or it seems to. And it is a great city that you all live in. And I was talking the other day about the difference between where I grew up in Indianapolis, which was for a while called Indianopolis. And then I went to school in Cincinnati and I thought I'd gone to heaven because they had an opera and they had a better symphony, they had a better museum. Everything seemed to be of an urban sense, the kind of choice that you want in the city. And then the city started to go down as the white flight took place. And center city of Cincinnati was then emptied. And it was so sad. All the department stores left. Everybody went to the suburbs. And now the city was a big donut around the center city. Meanwhile, Indianapolis was bringing everybody back to the center. And that's why I think all the sports teams go there to play and do all of that, because the hotels are good and the activities and the restaurants downtown are better than they've ever been. And the two cities have just reversed each other by bringing the donut inside as to outside. How did I get on that? It is old age. Anyway, thank you all very much. And again to Richard and Ness, thank you. You are cherished and blessed by all of us. Thank you.